and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we have the next vlog. I believe it's vlog 21 that I've done this year. I'm excited about it. I don't have a clue how many books I'm gonna get in this week because it's the first day with kids. First week with kids, obviously. And that just means ramping up the things that I have to do. Life as a teacher. I still want to make time for reading, and I actually am excited for the books that I have. I have the first book that I'm going to start is The Fountains of Silence, and I have read this before in Spanish. I was so impacted by this book in Spanish that I knew that I needed to read it in English as well. And already I'm about 140 so pages in. I started it earlier today. It's Sunday, by the way. I should mention that. There are so many, like if I tabbed up books, I would be tabbing this up. I don't typically annotate, but it's just so powerful and so many amazing things in this. And I know of things to come because I've read it before in Spanish, and I'm just so excited to experience it. I don't think this will take me nearly as long as Howl's Moving Castle did, which was my throughout the week read. So I expect, hopefully, to finish this by Wednesday-ish. I also don't have evening things on Wednesday like I did this past week. The other book that I want to get to throughout the week, hopefully start this week, is Vicious by V.E. Schwab, starting it again, another one of her series. I don't know how I feel about this, but since I have really enjoyed all of her works thus far, I think I have a good shot at enjoying this. The book so far of hers that I've liked the least is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and that just was a concept that just necessarily wasn't for me. And then my weekend read is going to be Bands of Mourning. I'm finally going to get to it. So I'm excited for that. I got 3 big books, big-ish books on my plan for the week, but these 2 here will finish off for the classes, except for I need to start listening to Fellowship of the Ring on audio. Once I get through those 3, then I will have finished all my classes. This one is for a quest for Magical Readathon, and I'm excited to get started. So checking in, day 1, it's done. Day 1 as a high school teacher. The thing about teaching freshmen, especially first semester freshmen, is that they're basically just 8th graders. They haven't, especially on the first day, they don't know anything about high school. I think this is gonna work out well. I had a pretty good day. Things flowed fairly well, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I haven't read anything else today, but after I started this vlog, I read some more of Fountains of Silence, about 100 pages more. I don't have any major new thoughts, but the one thing that I am noticing, and the reason that I wanted to read it in English is because I knew that there would be things that I missed in Spanish because I wasn't familiar with the vocabulary. So I've picked up on a few things that I totally missed while reading it in Spanish, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to this in a little bit. It is Tuesday. Today went really well at school. Things just seem to be finding a groove, flowing well. I'm having fun with my students, already like figuring out personalities and things like that. So I'm just enjoying it, which is, as you may remember, a change from some points last year. Reading update wise, I am a little under 100 pages away from finishing Fountains of Silence. I still love it. I really love it. The way that Ruta Sepetys tells this story, she splits the perspective. So there's 2 main characters, Daniel and Anna. Daniel is 18, just graduated high school. He's coming over with his parents. He's fairly well off. His mother was born in Spain but grew up in the US, and his dad is an oil man. So that's where they got their money. Daniel is really interested in photography, wants to go to journalism school. His dad's like, no, you're going into the family business. So that's a little bit of a source of conflict. Anna is the maid from their hotel that's assigned to their suites, and her parents were killed and or imprisoned and then later died because they were Republicans in the Spanish Civil War. Basically, they were against the fascists. they were educators. They wanted to open up a Montessori school, and that was not allowed because it was outside the Catholic Church. It gets into complicated history things that if you don't know much about the Spanish Civil War and the fact that Franco became a dictator before Hitler and Mussolini, he died of old age. So they are not very well off. Anna lives with her sister's husband, their young, very sickly daughter, and her older brother, Rafa, who was actually imprisoned as a 12-year-old when their parents were arrested, has lots of trauma, but he has a really good friend who's a bullfighter. I'm basically telling you the background of the story that I haven't told you so far. But there's also their cousin, who is the daughter of their mother's sister. She's another perspective in it. And she very much believes everything that she has been raised to believe. She works at an orphanage, but she starts to find out things. So all of this information is revealed piece by piece and from varying perspectives. So even though you have Daniel and Anna, who are the main characters, you get perspectives from Rafa. You get one or two perspectives from Fuga, who is Rafa's friend who wants to be the bullfighter. You get perspectives from Purificación, the cousin. And it tells this story where you are just getting all these threads of the horrors of what are going on and the ramifications of the things that are going on and the unraveling of this story and learning so much about this time period. It's just beautiful. And I remember loving it when I read it in Spanish. And I love the fact, I'm so glad that I got the English version. I'm actually glad that I read it in Spanish first because I read Spanish a lot slower. I picked up on a lot more things reading it slower, reading it like 4 pages at a time than I would have if I had just read it in English. But I also love the fact that I read it in Spanish, didn't necessarily catch everything, caught more because I read it slowly, and now reading in English, catching even more. So I think this is one of the best Ruta Sepetys books I have ever read. So I eagerly anticipate reading I Must Betray You, her newest release. I'm gonna go try to finish things up before I go do some strength training and then check in with you later. Okay, so it's Wednesday. I'm gonna check in real quick. I don't have anything this evening. I have a confession to make. As you'll see in my next book haul, I went to a used bookstore on the way home because I have no self-control. I bought 28 books. Most of them used, some of them new, because I've decided that I want all the versions of Lord of the Rings as well, because that's my legit favorite book. Well, all the versions except for the Rings of Power versions, like it has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings. But anyway, and the movie tie-in cover ones, no. So I spent 2 hours, hour and a half at the bookstore and then half hour with all the other stuff. So I did finish Fountains of Silence last night and I love it. I love it. This is definitely gonna get 5 stars. Definitely, like I said yesterday, my favorite Ruta Sepetys book, hands down. So amazingly good. An aspect of the plot that took me really by surprise the first time around. I'm not gonna say what it is because I don't want to spoil it. I remember when I read it in Spanish, I felt really gypped. I'm like, wait, what? You're gonna leave it here and like I want this resolution. And we didn't get the resolution when we thought we were going to. And I wondered how it would read the second time because I knew it was coming. It gave it such a unique perspective. Like I was anticipating what we got in that next section instead of looking back anxiously like, what did I miss? The first time was still so good. Ruta Sepetys' character development is just lovely. One of the characters in there, Purificación, Puri, I just feel so sorry for her. There's a lot of answers that you can kind of fill in the blank that Ruta Sepetys never comes out and says explicitly, this is what it is. And Puri doesn't get a lot of concrete answers, but you can figure out things that she's figured out. And the way that her storyline resolves, it's so bittersweet. I have nothing but good words to say about this book. I have not started Vicious yet. That's going to be my next read. I am going to pick the audiobook of Fellowship of the Rings back up tonight. Vicious and Fellowship of the Rings are the last books I have for my classes. The 24-hour all-nighter for part of Aurelium, like you're in school or whatever. is this weekend. So obviously I'm not going to stay up all night, but I am going to focus on it this weekend. So I hope to, by that point, if I haven't finished Vicious, I'll finish Vicious, and then I'll pick up several books that I have for my quests so that I can read the books that I have for Can't Believe-a-thon, which is the last week, which are middle grades. So I have plenty of those that I could read, and I'm excited about it. So now I need to do some editing. So I figured I would try something new, and there's probably going to be my freezer making noise in the background, and it's cutting off my head. Whatever. New location. I am making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for my lunch. I could just grab a burrito. I've had that for a little while and I want to mix things up. Plus, I don't want to spend any of my 20 minutes for lunch warming up the burrito. I mean, it's not bad. I have first block planning, meaning I didn't there plan, and I have classes until the end of the day. But I get another little 20-minute break to eat. And let me tell you, not having to walk children down to the cafeteria or supervise them, try to put food in my mouth while they're being little hooligans at the tables. Yeah, I like teaching for a number of reasons, but that's one of them. So a brief update, reading update. I attempted to start Vicious last night. I was doing some of my daily reading, and I'm still reading Spanish, but I'm also, the book that's been on my TBR so long, The Burgermeister's Daughter. I just decided I'm never really going to be in the mood to eagerly pick it up. Not that it's a bad book, but I decided I'm going to read 10 pages a day, and I'm going to get it done. So I read both of those yesterday in the time that I had left after that spur of the moment book haul, and then went back to my little reading chair in my library to try to read Vicious, and I'm really intrigued. Really intrigued. I love the setup. I so far have liked the time jumps that we've gotten. They vary in length. You're not always going back and forth from the same point. And because the time jumps to the past could be 10 years in the past, or it could be a month or something like that. But I am only 46 pages in. Don't know much about it. EOs, Extraordinaries have just been mentioned. I've got a lot to go. The problem was I kept falling asleep. It's hard to read while you're falling asleep. But the plan is, it's early enough this evening, no spur of the moment book hauls. So I just finished my strength training. So I'm gonna finish prepping my lunch for tomorrow. Then I'm going to go probably do my Spanish reading and then also Burgermeister's Daughter before getting back to Vicious. So I hopefully will have more of an update on Vicious. This is harder than it looks to both talk and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Hopefully I have more of an update, and I've read a little bit more, so hopefully tomorrow. And I might check in periodically on Saturday during the 24-hour all-nighter as part of Magical Readathon. Don't know yet. Okay, so I thought I would start this update with cool book mail package. Something that has never happened in my 11 years on Goodreads. I won a giveaway. And it was for a book I really wanted. I won an Arc of Saint. I'm so excited about this. This is the prequel novel. I thought it was a novella, but it's the prequel novel to the Fable series, which I read for the Goodreads Choice Award nominees last year. And I just have been going through periodically and just signing up for giveaways, you know. What can it hurt? Because like, if I don't win, I don't win. I finally won. I didn't realize it was an advanced reader copy because I thought they just do giveaways like for actual books or whatever. This does not go on sale until November. The back is not what you typically see on it. This is clearly a finalized-ish cover because it's very similar to the other covers that I have. I've got this paper. So congratulations on winning a copy of Saint by Adrienne Young. We hope you enjoy the read and will share your thoughts with us on Goodreads, Facebook, or any other website of your choosing. This is my first, it feels like, legit ARC to win. So I'm really excited about that. In other news, I got a decent chunk of Vicious read. I love it. I love it so much. The way she's telling the story, like the development of the characters, they're not good. This is the Villains Duology series for a reason. They're villains, but it feels so complex, way more complex, obviously, than some of the other stuff I've read by her. Way more complex than, obviously, her middle grades and young adult, but even more complex than Addie LaRue, Darker Shade of Magic. This feels, in comparison to Vicious, A Darker Shade of Magic reads a lot younger. I don't know why that is. I love it so much. Already, only like 120 pages in, you can already see their descent into madness, into villainy, and I just keep wanting to know more. Okay, so it's about 3:30 on Saturday. I'm only filming here because I have a lot of books to hold up in just a second, and there's not a good place to set my tripod if I'm sitting on my reading chair. So the all-nighter for the Magical Readathon started about 2.5 hours ago. I've done 2 sprints so far, and in those 2 sprints, I finished Vicious. Wow. So good. So complex and nuanced, and I had an inkling on how things were going to go and how things were going to get sorted and all that sort of stuff, and how things were going to change based on the characters introduced and the way that the flashbacks and stuff were going. And a lot of that was true. But Schwab wrote it in such a way that I loved the fact that I was able to predict it, and I loved seeing it unfold. So well done. It's not one of those books that's going to necessarily be an all-time favorite. It's going to get a high rating from me, but reading about morally gray characters and villains, not necessarily my cup of tea, what I gravitate towards, but I always love reading something well written, and I will definitely be picking up Vengeful, and depending on how that goes, will determine whether or not I pick up the later books in the series. So first book down, I have only 1 book left for my classes, and that is the audiobook of Fellowship of the Ring. I forgot to mention that I started back listening to audiobooks. I had stopped for a little while and was just watching BookTube in the evenings because in July, you know, I read 60 books and I needed to slow down. So I started the audiobook listening again with Fellowship of the Rings. I love this story so much. I know this story like the back of my hand. The first time I read it was in 7th grade. And I've read it so many times since then. And I've watched the movies so many times. Not The Hobbit. I have thoughts on that. That I know the story so well. And yet, there's just something about Andy Serkis's narration that brings a whole other level and experience to this story. He's a master at this. I have listened to the audiobook before, the Rob Inglis one, and it's still great. It's still awesome. Andy Serkis takes it to another level. So I will probably finish that in a couple days, not as part of the readathon. So speaking of the readathon, I have a stack of books to consider for what's next. I'm going to hold up I'm going to hold up the whole stack. These are all of the books that I am choosing from. Obviously, it's a 24-hour readathon. I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to stay up. I have been working on recovery after my runs because it turns out that teaching and being on your feet all day takes a little bit out of you, and I want to perform well on my runs. So I'll definitely be sleeping. Of these books, the lowest priority are the Alcatraz books because Can't Believe-a-thon starts Monday, I believe. If I got through all of the other ones, I would pick these up. If anything, I might pick up book 2 because I'm so far into it, just so I'd have another book completed. That aside, I don't know which of these I'm going to pick up first. Obviously, I have no intention of finishing Arcanum Unbounded, but what my plan is as soon as I finish Bands of Mourning, I'm going to catch up with the novellas or whatever I need to read in here. Huh? So that's why this is on here. I'm definitely not going to be finishing that. So my choices really are 4 as to what I pick up next. I am leaning towards Over the Woodward Wall by Shauna Maguire because it's so short. And then I'm torn between these 2 because I just finished Fountains of Silence a few days ago and loved it. So this would be returning to Ruta Sepetty's work, but also I really want to get through my Brandon Sanderson stuff because, again, I want to finish Brandon Sanderson backlog before the new books, the secret projects, come out. And after August, I have 4 months. I have 4 Stormlight Archive books to read. I don't plan on doubling up on the Stormlight Archive books. Ideally, I want to read one of those a month. That means I need to finish this because in November, I am going to be reading the 11th Metal. Although, not sure because I have these in paperback and I don't want to get the hardback. I'm OCD. I like things to match. So there we are. I just talked myself into reading this next because it's so short. The next time I update will be after I finish it because it's currently another reading sprint going on. So I'm going to pick that up and then I will decide what I will read next. Okay, so we are one more sprint down and I started Over the Woodward Wall without the dust jacket, very bright and red, which I find interesting because both of the characters have gotten over the wall and everything's very blue. Well, very colorful. When they first get over the wall, it's very blue. I love it. The way that Sean McGuire writes this, it's very Storytell-esque. And from what I know, that's how these stories developed. They are mentioned and referred to in her middle game world. This feels like fairy tales of whatever that world is. And they're definitely written as that sort of fairy tale talking to the audience members, in this case, the readers. I find it absolutely fascinating. And there have been several times that if I tabbed books or, you know, like just marked statements or sayings that I really enjoyed or that I found really impactful or well said, I would have already found several in this book, and I'm only 60 pages in. I didn't get as much written in that third sprint, the first with that book, because I started the sprint a little bit after that sprint started. They are currently doing some sort of like D&D storytelling with their characters. I've got it muted right now, but in just a moment I'm going to turn that back on. I'm going to get back into Over the Woodward Wall, probably finish that hopefully in the next sprint because it's about 200 pages. I might not finish it in the next sprint. It's a shorter sprint, but I'll get a significant chunk through and I'm really enjoying it. And I have decided to go to Bands of Mourning next. That's just what I'm in the mood for. This fantasy, fairy tale like stuff. And then, if I still have time in the readathon, I will get to If I Betray You. Good morning. It is Sunday morning and I finished the last book that I needed for my classes, which was Fellowship of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings so much. There's just something about that story that captivates me, and I know the story so well. I know exactly what's going to happen, but I still love it. One note, obviously, is the first time that I've read it with Andy Serkis's narration, and in the Mines of Moria, when you have the drums in the deep, I don't think I've ever heard a human being make drum sounds like that. He did such an amazing job. Obviously, I can't imitate that. It sounded like actual drums, but it also sounded like haunting and terrifying, like the drums in the deep in Moria are supposed to sound like. Absolutely brilliant. I definitely plan to finally finish the audio of Lord of the Rings. I purchased the Andy Serkis version months ago, but got distracted by Realm of the Elderlings. So I'm going to get back to that. But after another book that I picked up, An Indigenous History of the United States, I think I'm not getting the title exactly right on that, but that's only about a 10-hour audiobook. I want to get back into audiobooks, especially like nonfiction audiobooks, because I find it a really compelling way to consume it, but also I want to have books to recommend to my mom, who has been on an audiobook listening spree, and she's read so many of the audiobooks that I've recommended this year and really enjoyed them and had similar opinions to me, but just she's gotten into them so much deeper than me, which I absolutely love. physical books, I finished Over the Woodward Wall yesterday, and the way that this leaves off, yeah, definitely going to pick up the next 2 books in the series. I love this fairy tale, the way that it's told. It feels like a combination of Narnia and, I'm blanking on, L. Frank Baum, The Wizard of Oz. It feels like a combination of Narnia and The Wizard of Oz. And you've got the discovery of this new world and all these, like, the talking animals and etc. But the absurdism that L. Frank Baum puts into the Wizard of Oz books, and I have read the books, the actual books beyond, you know, the first one. But just the way that Shauna Maguire writes, puts the prose in so many times. Like, if I annotated books, there were so many quotes in here that I just loved the way that she wrote them. So highly recommend this. And now I have been making my chance and community shelf cards for my Bookoplathon board. I'm going to be doing Bookoplathon put on by Becca and the Books. And today I'm going to film that TBR video. So I have to make these and then film it to make my TBR for September. And I need to do that this week because September starts next week. Yeah, rapidly moving forward. But I finished that, and then the 24-hour all-nighter for Magical Readathon is continuing until about 1 p.m. my time. I don't know if I'll be able to finish Bands of Mourning today because I haven't started it yet. But I am going to make good progress, hopefully, on this. And then after 1 p.m. is when I'm going to start, like, editing videos and filming the TBR and etc. Okay, so I am here to wrap up the vlog. The 24-hour all-nighter has ended. I extended it just a little bit, and I'll explain that in a second. Now since I read a lot this morning, I'm focusing on editing and prepping videos because I got my TBR video, like I mentioned before, to get filmed and etc. Finishing up making that TBR. The reason that I extended it a little bit is because as I was reading Bands of Mourning, I don't know why, but there are certain times when I get super sleepy. Nothing to do with the book, but I was getting frustrated because I'm like, I want to read. I want to find out what's happening. Since I kind of dozed off for a little bit, I extended it just a little bit because I didn't mean to doze off, but I still didn't get as far as I wanted to. I got to about page 180, and I had a feeling that I would like this one even more than Shadows of Self. So right. I think I was just in a weird headspace or something when I was reading Shadows of Self that didn't let me, like, fully immerse myself. But in this one, we're putting a lot of pieces together. There's a lot of history and lore and world building. I mean, the kind of stuff that, frankly, you see in Lord of the Rings, which, not saying that Brandon Sanderson is J.R.R. Tolkien. There's something revealed. There's something mentioned in here that I read it and went, what? What? It's revealed about a character from Era 1. And it's something that happened to that character that I had no idea had happened to that character. And if it did, it was mentioned and it was assumed to be the case. But I don't think it's been mentioned in any other book so far in the Cosmere, in the Mistborn world. So thanks, Mr. Sanderson, for blowing my mind. I hope to finish this soon, probably Tuesday next week, not so sure. All in all, the books that I read this week, I had Vicious, very good book. This has been a very great reading week. Really good, really enjoyed this. This was the only one that I completed solely for the 24-hour readathon, Over the Woodward Wall. I finished Fellowship of the Ring, and yes, I know this is the Spanish version, but this is the only standalone of Fellowship that I have. Finished this as audiobook and then got into Bands of Mourning. I had a great time this week. Based on my September TBR, I might have set the bar a little too high, but we'll see that. You won't see any of those books in next week's. Next week is going to be all about middle grade, so hopefully it'll be nice and easy to ease me into September. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.